the question is really simple. How do you start something like that from scratch? What did you do at Learnlife? Did you work according to specific existing methods like Scrum and design thinking, or did you do something very different?
When I came in, I was in from very early on, but the actual learning hubs, how they were set up and put together, was very agile. It wasn't, we're going to design think. There would have been design thinking, for example, let's design think a vision, and there would have been time spent on putting together a vision statement. There would have been Scrum used probably for product development whenever the tech team were putting together the LMS. So there would have been multiple different ways of methodologies, but it would be very agile. It would be very much what do we need right now, and okay, let's sense and respond to whatever that is, and what's the best way of doing it. So for you, like being informed on, having a vision for what you want to do, starting with the end, what's your outcome, like what do you want to build, is probably the best place to begin. And like, how are you going to build it is the question. So if you're going to build a new sort of curriculum, for example, how are you going to do that? If you're going to build a new way for learning, how are you going to do that? If you're going to build a new way for assessing learning, how are you going to do that? These are the questions you probably need to wrestle with. The best quote that I've heard in a long time, it's stuck with me for so long now, is the community is the curriculum. I would recommend that you think about that. There's a guy called Dave Cormier who has done a lot of work on connecting digital community to the physical community. I guess a lot of work in self-determined learning, pedagogy, blended learning, and taking those principles and trying to create a new way for learning. And he's done a lot of work with the OECD as well. And he would be one of the more impressive people that I've viewed, who's designing new ways for learning. And I would, when I say start with the ending, I would also recommend that you think very carefully about the glossary of terms that you want to use. Is the word curriculum, for example, a word that you want to use? I would argue no. I don't. There's words and phrases that we need to evolve and to change and to reframe. So I would spend a lot of time in the drawing room, iterating in a design thinking context. Then what are the key things that you think this new framework for nurse education or residential people's education would need? What do you think? And then what do you think the learners will want? So the next step, I would say, on that envisioning is to survey those potential learners and ask them the questions. What do you want? Create a participatory framework for learning, where the learner is put at the center of the learning based on what they want to learn, how they want to learn it as well. And I would push further and say, does learning have to happen within the confines of a 9 to 5, for example? Where's the opportunity for flexibility, asynchronous learning? Does everybody have to be face-to-face? Is there choice in how much someone has to be there in a class, in a learning experience? Is there choice in how much a person can step back and suit their own context and learn remotely? And the assessing of learning, I would, there's obviously going to be practical content that's going to be required. So I would try and distill very quickly, what is the content that is very important to be a nurse or to be a residential worker? What's the key terms, the key words, the key concepts that you cannot overlook. And then what are the skills and competencies that people need to attach to those concepts, and try and merge the two so it's real life. And then I guess the other thing, I don't think I've mentioned it yet, is I did already mention the assessing of learning, but what would you, if you're going to assess learning, are you going to decide yourself how to assess the learning, or are you going to offer choice around how you want to assess your learning outputs? So for example, some learners very comfortable sitting down answering questions. Some learners want to demonstrate their learning through practical sort of application, and some people maybe want to demonstrate their learning in a creative way through project, through video content creation. I like, if you can nail that, like that's a big one. Trying to broaden out the assessment outputs.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. This is real Learnlife stuff, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I hear a lot of experience and reflection you did the last years in Learnlife.
Yeah. Start with a vision. Yeah. And the aspiration, what's the end?
Yeah.
When you know that, what's the journey?
Yeah. And could you tell me a bit more about what you mean when you say vision? What does this phrase mean to you? What is a vision?
Yeah. That's a good question. Something I wrestle with quite a lot. A vision is your ideal world, your ideal utopia, your aspiration. So in an organization, the vision would be a very high ideal utopia, aspiration, something that the overall goal is like, this is what we're aiming for. This is your vision. And then from that, you have a mission, and that's the action that you would take towards that vision. But the vision should always be clear. It should be very, very easy to remember. We wrote one quite recently for Learnlife B2B, activating transformational learning journeys of communities around the world. It's very easy to remember. It's quick, it's short. Everything that we would do is based on that vision. So like, if you're going to write a new framework for learning in this course, I would have a vision. What's your vision for your nurse? What's your vision for your residential worker? And I would make sure that vision relates very strongly to every single learner who's going through that journey. What do they want to come out with? Like, what is the high ideal of someone who's moving into this space? That is universally relatable. No matter what your values are, you're always moving. Everyone unique individual is moving towards the same goal.
And what comes in my mind now is that there is a big difference between an organization that starts from scratch, like Learnlife, and an organization like my client has. It already exists in a very traditional way and understanding of education, and also the partners they work with. For example, the hospitals and the residences, they are also very on a traditional path of and mindset of education, and also of work and working and being an employer and an employee. And so what I see is you have not only this challenge of creating something new, but also you have the stuff, you have the people, you have the tradition, you have the mindsets, all that, everything that already exists, you know. And how do you handle that? Do you who do you have to leave behind? Do you want to leave someone or something behind? Do you want to take all of them with you? How can you bring them into vibrations? And these are the questions, because it's not starting from scratch, but it's starting inside and with a traditional organization.
So it's a challenge. I mentioned earlier about participatory opportunities. Every single stakeholder who's involved in this community of learning, should have an opportunity to communicate what they want. I would probably imagine in a traditional setting like what you're talking about, there's been very little opportunity for dialogue between the learner and the lecturer, for example. It's always been very, this is the content, this is what you do. So there's a need to reframe the thinking around what motivates people to learn, you know. Like, am I standing in front of a room with 50 to 60 people here? Are they listening? Take the pressure off the lecturer to have to do that, because like when I was working in education, you know, the thing that always crossed my mind was, if I wasn't here, would the learning still happen? So the high ideal for me in that was, how do I set up a system where when I'm not here, the learning's still happening? Because, and that goes back to values of the learner. So there's a lot of work needing to be done to awaken in the learner, the community, why they're there, you know, what they want to get out of it, what their understanding of learning is, how they learn. These are things that are often overlooked, and they're actually really important things that everybody in any learning community now should be made aware of, you know. And I think I would start with that. I would start with those questions, and I would also, you know, I would be very, very regular in the overall framework for the community of revisiting and reevaluating the learner mindset. You know, there's evidence, and there's been a lot of work done in recent years to debunk the myth, that we all learn one way. Like, we're either a visual learner, we're an auditory learner, or we're a kinesthetic learner. But that's been debunked. It's not true. We can learn in different ways, in many ways. So it's more about exposing learners to the different ways of learning.
Yeah. And
you can't rely on the lecturer, the individual, to be strong in all those areas. So all you can do is, well, not all you can do, but what you need to do is create frameworks for learning that offer those opportunities, while also continually informing learners around things like metacognition, that learning how to learn, and always revisiting values, revisiting vision, you know, iteration around, you know, using design thinking for what's already there with the community that you're in. When was the last iteration? When was the last evaluation around? When was the last ideation and the empathy building conversations around like what curriculum already exists? Survey the lecturers. Do you enjoy your work? And in a very, very psychologically safe way. Like, do you enjoy your work? How long have you been doing it for? Are you comfortable in what you're doing? how could you be more comfortable? How could you stretch your own capacity as a professional to grow yourself? Do you see yourself as a learner or a lecturer now? Where's your zone of proximal development? What are you doing to develop yourself? And I think that's where you change culture as well, is whenever you start to view a whole community as a community of learning.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for your thoughts. They are very valuable, very precious.